side of the war. So these trucks are not just trucks. They are a lifeline. They are the difference between life and death for so many people in Gaza. And to see them stuck here makes me be very clear. What we need is to make them move. To make them move to the other side of this wall. To make them move as quickly as possible and as many as possible. Now, recently it was announced by Israel and by the United States that humanitarian aid will be allowed to enter Gaza. And I know that there is also an agreement between Egypt and Israel to make it possible. But these announcements were made with some conditions and some restrictions. And so we are now actively engaging with all the partners. Actively engaging with Egypt, with Israel, with the US, in order to make sure that we are able to clarify those conditions, that we are able to limit those restrictions, in order to have, as soon as possible, these trucks moving where they are needed. We absolutely need to have these trucks moving as quickly as possible and as many as necessary. But for that, this must be a sustained effort. We are not looking for a one convoy to come. We are looking for convoys to be authorized in a meaningful numbers of trucks to go every day into Gaza to provide enough support to the Gaza people. On the other hand, there are requirements of verification. But those verifications need to be effective, but at the same time, those verifications need to be done in a way that is practical and in a way that is expedited. On the other hand, we are not in a no man's land. We are in the land of a sovereign country, Egypt. And it's essential to recognize the role of the Egyptian institution, and namely of the Egyptian Red Crescent. And finally, for UNRWA to be able to distribute aid on that side, it's necessary that UNRWA has fuel. And so we need to have the guarantee that there will be enough fuel on the other side to distribute aid to the people in need. So it is very clear that it is absolutely essential to solve these problems quickly, and I'm hopeful they will be solved quickly, to make sure that there is massive support, humanitarian support, to the people of Gaza. Unfortunately, this is not a normal humanitarian operation. It's an operation in a war zone. And that is the reason why I have appealed for a humanitarian ceasefire. Not that I consider that humanitarian ceasefire is a precondition for humanitarian delivery. We don't want to punish the Gaza people twice. First, because of the war, and second, because of the lack of humanitarian aid. But it is clear that humanitarian ceasefire would make things much easier and much safer for everyone. And I want to end by expressing my deep gratitude to the people and the government of Egypt. Egypt is today the fundamental pillar that allows hope to exist on that side of the border. Hope that these trucks will move to support them. Hope that the aid and the medicines I've seen in a train, in a plane that has landed, will also go to the people that needs it. Hope that there will be a future, and hope that one day there will be peace with a two-state solution, with Palestinians and Israelis living in peace in two states, one side by the other. Thank you very much. A broken heart. On one hand, to see the generosity of drivers of so many, more than 100 trucks. Some have been there for a few days, waiting to be able to cross. And they are a lifeline to the people in Gaza. The difference between death and life, with water, with food, with medicines, with everything the people of Gaza needs. And at the same time, when we have the trucks stuck at the border, we have the people in Gaza in a dramatic situation. Children, mothers, elderly people, all without water, without electricity, without food, without medicine. And so we must stop this dramatic impasse. We absolutely need to move the trucks, as quickly as possible and as many as possible from Egypt into Gaza. Now there was an announcement by the US, by Israel, that humanitarian aid would be allowed into Gaza. There are agreements in principle between Egypt and Israel in this regard, but we need to overcome the conditionalities, the obstacles that still exist. We are engaging very actively with Israelis, with Egyptians, with Americans, to see if as soon as possible we are able to move the trucks. But it's important that we have not a one-shot operation. It's important that we have continued support with a meaningful number of trucks approved every day to cross. On the other hand, there must be a verification. That verification needs to be serious, but it needs to be also expedited and practical. We have seen how many trucks are there that are led by the Egyptian Red Crescent. It's important to recognize the role of the Egyptian Red Crescent and of other Egyptian institutions that are there also to support the people in Gaza. It's not only the United Nations. And it is essential to have fuel on the other side for UNRWA to be able to distribute humanitarian aid for the population in Gaza. At the same time, this is a war zone, and that is the reason why I've asked for a humanitarian ceasefire. We don't consider it to be a condition sine qua non, because we don't want the people to be punished twice. First, the ceasefire would enormously facilitate and make much more safe the distribution of humanitarian aid. I have repeatedly said that the barbaric attack by Hamas need to be condemned, but I've also said they cannot be a pretext for a collective punishment of the Palestinian people. It's absolutely essential to respect international humanitarian law. It's absolutely essential to protect civilians, and it's absolutely essential to make humanitarian aid come to the Palestinians in it.
When you saw the anger of those protesters, most of it leveled at Israel and the US, but also at the international community for failing to stop the situation, what's your response to those protesters?
Many of them, as I said, drivers that have been waiting. You can imagine what it is to be stuck in traffic for 2 weeks, waiting, leaving the family, and so there is a considerable amount of anger.
But many of them were just ordinary people as well.
But most of them were volunteers and that are waiting to be able to act and drivers. I think what's important to say is that we are doing everything we can engaging with all parties to ensure that sooner rather than later we are able to have not only a first convoy but continue aid to the people.
But no timeline.
I think it should be as quickly as possible and with as many as possible flags across the first.
There's been extraordinary diplomatic efforts over the year. The President of the United States, the President of Egypt, and still not a single bottle of water, not a single bale of grain or flour has made it into
As I
Gaza.
mentioned,
Why?
there were, when the announcements were made, some conditions and some limitations. And it's necessary to have the conditions clarified, and that's exactly what we are doing. And some of the limitations removed and others reduced to minimum, because this is a very complex operation, and we need to make sure that it is a success. To cut a long story short, we need to have as quickly as possible the first convoy, and we need to create all the guarantees for that first convoy not to be the last.
Meanwhile, time is running out for people in Gaza. Sorry? Time is running out for people in Gaza.
Of course, time is running out because without electricity, without water, without food, life is.
How much is the delivery of aid tied to people coming?
We need to have conditions for hostages to be released, we need to have conditions for humanitarian aid to be delivered, and we need to have conditions for those working out.
So what's the main obstacle?
As I said, I do not accept the idea that we make this a kind of a there are lots of complex we are doing everything we can with all partners to expedite those complexities. So they want more or less